1937 Bentley 4 1/4 Roadster by Carlton Carriage Company. The 1937 Bentley 4 1/4, the silent sports car. Never was a moniker more aptly given to a car than that Rolls-Royce gave to this one, and cars like it. You know, it's very funny because these cars have been somewhat underappreciated by people who are vintage Bentley aficionados, and I think that's wrong. Everyone worships at the shrine of the so-called Cricklewood Bentleys, the original Bentleys built by the company owned by W.O. These cars, built after the takeover of Bentley by Rolls-Royce in 1931, don't have that same sort of appeal to many, but I think that's just because of a lack of exposure. It's widely believed that Rolls-Royce bought Bentley out of receivership in 1931, mainly because they wanted to make sure that another buyer of the company wouldn't continue production of the Bentley 8-liter, which Rolls-Royce saw as a big competitor to their Phantom II. However, after buying the company, for one reason or another, they decided to keep cars in production, and as Bentley didn't have a smaller model, they decided to create one of their own. Based on the chassis, a modified chassis of their 2025 model, and with a modified high-performance engine, the Bentley 3.5-liter was born. It featured a cross-flow head, hotter cams, higher compression ratio, and bigger carburetors. And while the Rolls-Royce 2020 is certainly not viewed as a performance car by anyone by any standard, the modifications that the Rolls-Royce engineers made to the car did result in a car that felt like a Bentley. And yet, of course, they weren't going out for pure racing speed. They wanted more of a comfortable gentleman's express. And they succeeded mightily. I remember quite vividly being introduced to the world of vintage Bentleys through a 1929 Bentley I had the opportunity to drive. And it was a somewhat daunting experience because so much was expected of me and the car. I have to say that the Derby Bentleys are a lot easier to drive, a lot easier to get familiar with very quickly. And you can just imagine the added market appeal that a car like this had over one of the hairy-chested Le Mans racers that W.O. was building in the late 1920s. Nevertheless, it still has a great feeling of security. It's a car that wants to go along and give you a great ride. One of the great advantages, of course, to this Rolls-Royce chassis Bentley is the fact that you have the benefit of synchromesh on 3rd and 4th gears, which makes the driving experience a little more relaxed. Although I have to say that through dumb luck, I'm sure, I had a fairly good time, an easy time driving the crash box in the earlier Bentley when I did. But nonetheless, this is a much more relaxed driving experience than you might find in a Cricklewood Bentley, but nonetheless enjoyable for it. Cars like this have, for those who haven't experienced them, a much more comfortable and modern, if you will, driving experience than you might expect. The car feels very firm. The steering is heavy but direct. When you turn the wheel, the car responds. It doesn't really like to be driven at very low speeds, but the faster the car goes, the lighter the steering becomes, and the easier the car is to drive. I can certainly imagine that by the standards of the 1930s, this would have been a delightful car to take on a drive like this, on a beautiful ocean road, top down, not a care in the world. And of course, someone who could afford a car like this in 1937 probably didn't have a care in the world. One of the other great pleasures of driving this particular car is its unique nature. The Carlton Carriage Company built very few bodies for the Bentley 4 1/4, and this is the only open one they built. This car has exquisite lines that really suit what this Bentley is all about. It's elegant and sporty at the same time. Comfortable, beautifully appointed. The gauges, the leather, this exquisite dark blue color, it's just absolutely magical. This car featured in a recent exhibition at the Audrain Automobile Museum, Shining Bright, Advances in Automotive Lighting, showing off the amazing Marshall headlights, side lights, and fog lights that it has. And although there are a number of remarkable cars in that exhibition, I have to say this was my favorite car in the exhibition, and I went down to the gallery almost every day just to take a look at it. And to be here out on the road, in it, behind the wheel, just raises my estimation of this car 100-fold. Bentley is one of those brands that has had, as many have, a somewhat checkered history. Great cars didn't necessarily equal financial success, and even to this day, Bentley has had a number of owners. And it's interesting to consider how those changes of ownership have or have not affected the character of the cars that wear the flying bee. I could certainly say with great confidence and great security that although this is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a Le Mans whip, it is certainly a very worthy car to wear the Bentley name. A beautiful Bentley, a beautiful curving road in the countryside. All it would need to be a great picnic hamper from Harrods filled with great delicacies and a great bottle of wine. Stop by the river or at the seaside for a great picnic. Then a blast back to London. That's the Bentley life. This 4 1/4 is certainly a car that is certainly suited to a dual personality. It's certainly at home here on a nice road with these great sweepers, but it'd be equally at home blasting down a straight A route in France or even climbing the Alps. It's got power to spare, lots of torque in this engine, very responsive immediately on the throttle. And people think of Ferraris and they think of metal gates, but the metal gate in the shifter is also quite reassuring, so you know you can't wrong slot. Reverse is way over to the left and securely behind the spring, so mistakes can't happen that way. You certainly have to be aware of where the suspension is going on a road with any dips or potholes, and the balance of a firm yet light grasp is certainly key to controlling this car well. I often talk about my cross-country test. Is this the car you want to drive cross-country in? Well, if I could find roads like this, nice, beautiful, open, fairly smooth 2-lane roads with just enough turns to keep it interesting and just enough areas of straight open road where you can open it up, I think it'd be wonderful. This is really a comfortable way to experience vintage motoring. And of course, style points don't hurt. Hi, it's Donald with this week's Audrain Fun Fast Fact quiz question. The Bentley 4 1/4 is based on the Rolls-Royce 2025. Exactly to what did 2025 refer? If you think you know the answer, leave it in the comment section below. And watch for our next video for the answer. Thanks. If you like these videos, let your friends know. Subscribe, comment, share.